Hi, this is Brendan from Watto Training, and in this tutorial we're taking a look at the TLIC4006 Drive Multi-Combination Vehicle Unit of Competency, Section 2, Chain of Responsibility. The source of information for this tutorial is from the nhvr.gov.au website. What is the chain of responsibility? Drivers and operators have traditionally been the focus of road laws. However, breaches are often caused by the actions of others. Under Chain of Responsibility, COR, complying with transport law is a shared responsibility, and all parties in the road transport supply chain are responsible for preventing breaches. This approach recognizes the effects of the actions, inactions, and demands of off-the-road parties in the transport chain. Anybody who has control over the transport task can be held responsible for breaches of road laws and may be legally liable. COR is similar to the legal concept of duty of care that underpins occupational health and safety (OH&S) law. Duty of care is a legal obligation to take a reasonable standard of care when doing acts that could foreseeably cause harm to someone else. Duty of care is an element of the tort of negligence. This approach has long been used by the courts to impose liability in negligence and damages claims. All parties in the supply chain, consignor, dispatcher, packer, loader, scheduler, consignee, receiver, manager, as well as the driver and operator must take all reasonable steps to prevent breaches of the road transport mass, dimension, loading, speed compliance, and work hours laws. Penalties and sanctions range from formal warnings to court-imposed fines and penalties relating to the commercial benefit derived from offences. Supervisory intervention orders and prohibition orders banning individuals from the industry can be applied to persistent or systematic offenders. The aim of the COR is to make everyone in the supply chain share equal responsibility for ensuring breaches of the NVNL do not occur. Under COR laws, if you exercise or have the capability of exercising control or influence over any transport task, you are part of the supply chain and therefore have a responsibility to ensure the HVNL is complied with. If you consign, pack, load, or receive goods as part of your business, you could be held legally liable for breaches of the heavy vehicle national law, even though you have no direct role in driving or operating a heavy vehicle. In addition, corporate entities, directors, partners, and managers are accountable for the actions of people under their control. This is the chain of responsibility. The law recognizes that multiple parties may be responsible for offences committed by the drivers and operators of heavy vehicles. A person may be a party in the supply chain in more than one way. For example, they may have duties as an employer and the operator and the consigner of goods. Legal liability applies to all parties for their actions or inactions. Any person with an influence and or control in the transport chain is a party and includes but is not limited to corporations, partnerships, unincorporated associations, or other bodies corporate, employers and company directors, exporters, importers, primary producers, drivers, including bus driver and owner driver, prime contractors of drivers, the operator of a vehicle, schedulers of goods or passengers for transport in or on a vehicle, and the scheduler of its driver, consignors, consignees, receivers of the goods for transport, loaders, unloaders of goods, loading managers, the person who supervises loading, unloading, or manages the premises where this occurs. When could the COR apply? Some examples include when a party has control or influence over a transport activity and fails to manage so far as reasonably practicable the risk it creates when a party's business practices cause or encourage the driver of a heavy vehicle to exceed the speed limits. When a party's business practices cause or encourage the driver of a heavy vehicle to breach mass, dimension, or loading requirements. Where instructions, actions, or demands to parties in the supply chain cause or contribute to an offence under the HVNL. This includes any direction requirement or demand that is given directly or indirectly to a driver of a heavy vehicle or a party in the chain of responsibility that has an impact on compliance. For example, a consignor or consignee has unrealistic contractual arrangements which cause or encourages the driver to exceed regulated driving hours or drive whilst fatigued. A scheduler's business practices, requests or demands cause or encourage the driver to exceed the speed limit. Contracts that cause or encourage a driver of a heavy vehicle or a party in the chain of responsibility to break the law are illegal. In a prosecution, the courts may consider the actions of each party in the supply chain. This includes what measures each party had in place to ensure safe practices and prevent breaches of the HVNL occurring. Prosecution will need to demonstrate to the court that the party in the chain of responsibility did not do all that was reasonably practicable to ensure the safety of the party's transport activities. We're going to go through some FAQs now, and the source of these, again, is from the www.nhvr.gov.au website. So you can find these directly on there. I'm reading them out for those people who like to hear the audio of the text being read. As a consignor, what can I do to make sure that transporters' activities are safe and compliant? You should seek out companies that have a good reputation and avoid working with companies that are known to have a poor safety and compliance reputation. You should negotiate an agreement with a transporter, whether it's in a written contract or a verbal agreement, which makes clear that you must comply with regulations and safety requirements, and that if they breach those requirements, there will be consequences. For example, if a vehicle sent to collect your goods or stock that you believe is not safe or too small for the load, you may send it away without being loaded and insist that an appropriate vehicle was sent instead. Your contract or agreement with the transporter should cover what would happen in those circumstances, particularly if delay would cause financial loss to you. If a transporter refuses to accept those conditions or fails to meet them, you should consider looking for a different transporter. As a loading manager, can I get into trouble if one of the trucks we load gets caught speeding? In most circumstances, you don't have any control or influence over what happens when your goods leave your property, and you will not be liable if your conduct did not encourage or cause the speeding. You must avoid asking your transporters to deliver your goods within a time frame that requires the driver to speed to get there on time. You should ask your transporter to arrive with enough time to load the vehicle and drive to its destination legally and safely, factoring in unplanned delays. To assist, make sure your goods are ready to be picked up, and if for any reason you will be delayed, let your transporter know as soon as you can. Do I need to complete a chain of responsibility course? There is no specific requirement in the Heavy Vehicle National Law HVNL to undertake any mandatory courses in Chain of Responsibility, COR. However, an operator may consider it prudent to invest in COR or other types of training as part of taking reasonable steps to ensure they and their drivers comply with the HVNL and relevant road transport laws. I have to arrange a transport company to deliver an oversized load to a customer. Do I need to make sure the transporter has a permit to move the load? When you make arrangements for your goods to be transported, you should request that the transporter obtains all necessary permits and schedules the journey to meet legal requirements. Thanks for watching. This has been Brendan from Watto Training.